Ubisoft has been facing an insane amount of backlash surrounding Assassin's Creed Shadows, and they'd have to cancel the game in order to get people to stop pointing and laughing at them at this point. But recently, I've talked about Thomas Lockley, the Yasuke historian who has written books on how he was allegedly the first African samurai. But we now have proof that yes, Ubisoft did indeed work with him on this game. I have a few things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community on my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, previously, it was just speculation that Ubisoft had actually worked with this individual, because if you go to the Wikipedia page for Yasuke, most of the entries refer back to Thomas Lockley's books and papers on this topic, and he really believes himself to be a historian who people should respect. And of course, he just a few days ago had actually wiped his social media accounts. He got rid of things like Facebook and went absolutely silent. But now we know why, because he knew that in just a few days, people were going to be blowing this story up about how, yes, he did in fact work with Ubisoft on this game. So Mark Kern, aka Grums, had posted this X thread saying Thomas Lockley, the historian who promoted Yasuke as a samurai, did a podcast with Ubisoft about it. Japanese have been looking into his book and widely discrediting his quote research. And yes, if you go to Apple Podcasts, it is right here, clear as day. It says Yasuke, the first African samurai, echoes of history. It's got Ubisoft's name here. And it talks about how he is one of the most captivating and yet mysterious figures within Japanese history. We do know that Yasuke was more of a retainer, not a full-blown samurai, but of course, there are individuals who want to push this narrative because they know it will make them money, like Thomas Lockley. It says, delving into the history behind one of the two main characters in the latest Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Matt Lewis and Thomas Lockley examined the few surviving historical sources to reveal what we know about Japan's first African samurai. Now, when this game was initially announced, Ubisoft was boasting about how they had cultural consultants and historians and researchers working on this game and getting all of the information for the developers, and we didn't know exactly who, but now we know the names of these two individuals, and one at least is Thomas Lockley, somebody who, yes, has been caught in the past, editing Wikipedia pages to refer back to his books, basically to just sell more copies of his books. And now we also have him hiding. He has been getting called out, raked across the coals, honestly, by gamers for the inaccuracies in this false narrative he has been trying to push. And now people can see clear as day that yes, Ubisoft did in fact work with Thomas Lockley. Now, of course, ever since this podcast episode really started gaining traction, people have been taking to social media to roast Ubisoft and Thomas. Mongoloyer had made a post saying Thomas Lockley, the author of the Yasuke Black Samurai book, falsely claimed he never spoke to Ubisoft before deleting his account. So he straight up lied. He thinks that you, as a customer, are stupid. He thinks that gamers are stupid, that we wouldn't have either found out this information, or he was just at the end of the day trying to gaslight us, because it's now confirmed Ubisoft was influenced by him for Assassin's Creed Shadows and featured him in a podcast episode. He is now facing national backlash for his dishonesty. It also continues by saying, and the progressive critics who claimed only people from the West are upset, he has been trending in Japan for 4 consecutive days. It's a major topic in universities, schools, and on numerous TV outlets, and it should be highlighted that this company is working with individuals who first know nothing about what they're discussing, but also are willing to lie to your face about information that he obtained, and also also just about him simply working with a company. Now, of course, he had said just a few days ago that he didn't work with Ubisoft because he is trying to kill a lot of the backlash that's surrounding him, but that's not going to work. And now we have proof that he did work with Ubisoft and that this game was influenced by his quote research. It's only going to get worse from him. He's never going to be able to come back to social media and not face backlash. He would have to completely apologize. He would have to disown Ubisoft and Shadows, remove his books from storefronts, but we know he's not going to do that because he ultimately just cares about making money. And Ubisoft has already faced other criticisms and backlash, Thomas Lockley aside, like they had to apologize for using Japanese reenactment groups banner without permission in the game. So their historians, cultural consultants, researchers, whatever they want to call them, are not even good at their job because they took images from Google of a reenactment group's banner and didn't even know what the banners really were. They have absolute idiots working on this game. And to make it even worse, and hilarious, Assassin's Creed Shadows was just accused of using Zoro's sword from One Piece and props from Amazon as official artwork. They really thought that they were going to get away with this, that they'd go to Amazon and they'd buy this sword and this sword stand for like $100 and it would go over well for them. Also, the geisha statue you also can find for $15 on Amazon. So they couldn't even find high quality props to use. They found the cheapest of the cheapest and thought, this is how we're going to promote this game to people, and people are going to eat it up and love it. And that's the sad part about Assassin's Creed Shadows, is that for so long we've been asking for an Assassin's Creed game set in Japan, and they could have put out only a half-decent product as long as it seemed to be historically accurate, and people would have loved it. Or if from the beginning they had said it was not supposed to be historically accurate, people would feel very differently, but that's not how they were initially promoting it. Of course, I'm sure going into the game's release, they're going to market it slightly differently and say, you know, we took historical figures, but they're fictional versions of these individuals because they've been called out so many times at this point. But when it was first announced, they were promoting it as a historically accurate product. And there have been so many games that have come out that are so similar, like Rise of the Ronin and Ghost of Tsushima, which were fantastic. Ghost of Tsushima is one of my favorite games of all time. And even though it's not exactly the same, it's still close enough and it is still an amazing product. And that's all they had to do, was create something that people could generally enjoy, but instead they decided they were going to take this as their opportunity to shove more DEI into our faces and expect us to buy it. I mean, they also slapped customers in the face when they initially announced the game because all they did was show a cinematic trailer and then put up pre-orders. That was it. They didn't even show us gameplay, and there's $130 editions of this game, so they have no care in the world, and they haven't apologized for any of this backlash except for the Japanese reenactment group's banner, because this group had said they were going to talk to lawyers, so they had to apologize, and they did say they are going to remove them from the game. But that's the only time they have apologized, and it was from the Ubisoft Japan X account. It wasn't even from the team who was making the game, so it was a hollow apology as well. But at the end of the day, I don't see this getting any better for Ubisoft or for Thomas Lockley. People are pointing and laughing at him, at this game, mocking everybody affiliated with Shadows, and unless they just straight up scrap the game, which of course we know they're not going to do, they are not going to live down the backlash surrounding this title. But that's all that I had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.